Hey there, C# friends. My name's Matthew. I'm the C# artisan, and this is the 5th video in my series on threads. And today I want to talk about canceling a thread. There are several real-world situations where you might want to cancel a thread. One is that you've got a thread which for some reason maybe is taking too long or is stalled out, and you'd like to just tell it, please stop, cancel. Another very common thing is maybe your entire application needs to shut down and you need to gracefully shut down all of the worker threads that you've spawned. So if you look at the thread class in C#, you'll notice a method called thread abort. And that's tempting. Sounds like it should do what we want, but you do not want to use thread abort. Using thread abort is pretty much like turning off your computer by just unplugging it, if it was a desktop, and just killing the power. It's going to leave the computer in a potentially indeterminate state. So you would much rather do a graceful shutdown, even if that just takes a little bit of time. So that's what we're going to implement today, a little simple code that implements a pattern that's sometimes called the cooperative cancellation pattern that allows the main thread and the worker threads to work together to effect a graceful shutdown. Here we are back in our demo project, and I've created a new class called cancel a thread. And if you've been watching all the videos, this should look really familiar. I've got a main thread method called run a cancelable thread, which is going to create a worker thread using our cancelable thread proc to run the worker. So to do cooperative cancellation, we need a helper class. And I like to call this the cancellation helper. This is a very simple thread safe class. Let's walk through it. It's got a lock object and a private Boolean member, which is exposed as a public thread safe read-only property, cancel requested. It also has a method called cancel, which sets cancel requested to true in a thread safe way. So this is totally thread safe. Now, one question you might have is, why didn't we make cancel requested read write? Why didn't we just put a setter on there? The answer is that once you have requested cancellation, you can't unrequest it. This is a one-way operation. So we don't want to support somebody saying cancel requested equals false. That just doesn't happen. So now that we have our cancellation helper, we can use it to implement a cancelable thread. So for starters, let's do this. Thread T equals new thread using our cancelable thread proc. Then cancellation helper equals new cancellation helper. And then we will start our thread passing in the helper. So now this cancellation helper is going to get passed into our thread. So what next? Let's just log a few things. So we can say fancy logger.log worker thread started work. And now I'm going to say console.writeLine press enter to cancel, and console.readLine. So this will pretty much block the main thread, waiting for the user, for me, to press enter. And once we do press enter, that means we want the worker threads to stop. So we can say fancy logger.log requesting cancellation, and then we'll do helper.cancel. That should tell the worker thread to stop gracefully. And then we can just wait for that. So we can say while true, And we can say, let's see, fancy logger dot log, not while true. I don't know why I did that. While t dot is alive. Okay, while t dot is alive, fancy logger dot log, worker is still alive, and put in a little sleep here. Just, I don't know, 200 milliseconds should do it. And then when it's all done, we can say fancy logger dot log, worker shut down gracefully. All right, so that's our main thread that's going to create the cancelable worker, get it going, and then eventually signal it to stop and wait for it to stop. So how do we implement this cancelable thread proc? So the first thing we need to do is get a reference to our helper. Like that. We'll cast the helper or the object as a helper. And then let's make int I equals 1 and while true. So we'll imagine this as a long-running thread process. And in each loop, we'll say fancy logger.log, and we'll format a message here. Loop I ++, and thread.sleep. We can sleep for a second, and then we will check to see if we've been canceled. So if helper.cancel requested, and at this point we'll break. So until we get a cancellation request, this loop is just going to loop every second and print out loop 1, loop 2, loop 3. And then eventually we'll get the break and we will exit. So I think that's everything we need. Let's go ahead and build this. Make sure I don't have any silly mistakes. Seems good. I've got the program already wired up here to run our cancelable thread. So let's run it and see what happens. I'm pretty excited. Are you? Let's see how this goes. So we'll press enter. And now we can see our worker thread looping away. And whenever we're ready, we can go ahead and press enter to cancel. And there we go. So we went through 10 loops. I pressed enter, and we logged that we are requesting cancellation. And then our little monitor loop ran 3 times while the thread was shutting down. And then we saw that it was exiting, and the worker shut down gracefully. So there you go, a lovely cooperative cancellation pattern implemented with a graceful shutdown. Now, I have a couple comments. You maybe have seen a class out there called the cancellation token, and it goes along with a class called the cancellation token source, which is used to create one. And if you've done cancelable tasks, for example, then you've used this. So the cancellation token is exactly a cancellation helper. It has some more features, it's a little fancier, and the one main difference is that when a cancel is requested using a cancellation token, it throws an exception. It throws an operation canceled exception. So what that means is that this would not actually just be breaking out of the loop, but it would be throwing an exception. And that here, when we monitor, we would have to be putting this in a try catch. So this is part of the .NET ecosystem, and you should know about it and use it, and sometimes it's what you have to use. But I do want you to be aware that you can implement your own exception-free cancellation helper, and I kind of like it because in my way of thinking, requesting that a thread stop is not an exceptional activity. It's just something normal that you do, and you should be able to handle it without throwing and catching exceptions. So there you go. Now, right before I end this video, I want to show you something kind of fun. If you look back at the program class, you can see I'm actually handling a little event called console cancel key press. That's an event that fires when you do a Control C. And I've created a little demo here called Cancel All on Shutdown. So first of all, let me wire that up. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to run 3 worker threads that all are doing the same thing. They're all just gonna, it's got the same thread proc basically, and they're all gonna be cancelable. And then we handle Control C, and because I'm keeping a list of all of the threads and all of the cancellation helpers in my Control C handler, I can request that all the threads cancel, and I can wait for them all to shut down, and I can say that they all stopped. So let's just watch this go. It's pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to press enter, and you can see we've got 3 threads now looping away, looping away, looping away, and I'm going to press Control C. Ready, go. And there you have it. We were canceling all the worker threads very quickly. All the worker threads stopped, and the program exited. So this is just a nice illustration of that pattern I talked about at the beginning of using cooperative cancellation to gracefully terminate a whole bunch of worker threads when your entire program wants to shut down. All right, there you go. Canceling a thread the right way. Hey there, C# friends. Are you enjoying these videos and finding them helpful? I hope so. And if you are, please go ahead and like the video on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and feel free to leave a comment. I would love to hear from you.